Paper exists in this society in countless different ways, which is used by people to record different informations and corresponding stories. In my daily life, in addition to the facial tissues they are always carrying in my bag, such as A4 white paper, color drawing paper, gift wrapping tissue paper, etc., these are all things I usually use in my workplace. According to Palo 2016, in order to fully understand the meaning of paper requires people's brains and hands to work at the same time. Based on this idea, I began to explore and understand paper on a deeper level. First of all, I choose to wrap and touch papers with my fingers. The gift wrapping tissue paper has a sha sound, while the normal facial paper has no sound at all. The sound of brown colored paper, mixing papers, color drawing papers, gift wrapping papers, and A4 white papers were basically the same, which made a large friction sound. After that, I also noted that the surface of the brown colored papers was the hardest, followed by magazine paper, color drawing papers, and A4 white paper. As long as these three kinds of papers were gently folded, obvious like trace showed up. In contrast, the gift wrapping papers and facial tissue paper count as a thin list, which can be seen as the content behind them. When I shocked the paper with my hand, which was very similar to the paper being browned by the wind, and the sound made by each paper was different. In other words, the difference in paper thickness can be drawing from the sound. Material can involve memories, narrow stories, invite actions, and communication ideas. Pacini 2016. From my childhood memories, I folded out an A4 white paper as a trash can that exists throughout my childhood. When I wanted to fold a similar basket with skip wrapping papers, I found it was too light and soft. Based on this situation, I changed the way of making it as a decoration in a vase. On the other hand, the hardest of magazine paper was okay. So I use it to make a very simple paper airplane. In addition, color drawing paper made a triangle shape. In general, paper can be folded. I wanted to test to see how difficult it was to tear different papers. In fact, no matter what kind of paper, the texture was actually fragile. This kind of papers can be knitted into boards, but the value of the paper was relative. Large hardest cannot be pitched as small as the value of the soft paper. The process of pitching was a big laborious, especially when I only used one hand. According to my curiosity about how far each ball of paper could fly, I blew through my mouth. The summary obtained by blowing was the lighter the paper was longer the distance. Finally, I put half of the rest of paper into sink filled with water and see how they react with water. Like if wrapping tissue paper, if I hadn't pressed it into the water manually, it would have stayed on the top of the water for a long time. But once I touched with water and was completely exhumed by the water, it became a very tiny lump of paper. Although the hardest brown colored papers when soaked in water, I was pleasantly surprised that it didn't fade at all. A4 paper was able to squeeze out small bubbles in water by pressing through the hand, and the color drawing paper was the only one that directly broke and split into pieces after immersion in water. I cut off some of the other half of the paper facing with scissors, which I can still like drawing on with a pen, and the overall process is quite good. Through my own movement, I have gained a better understanding of characteristic and property of artistic language covered by different types of paper. There are still many people who will argue about like when the paper first appeared. Apart from this argument, people living in China use things like turtle carapaces to record things before Taiwan invented paper making. No matter who invented paper first, the change that paper has made to the world is significant and cannot be ignored. By finishing this so-called language of plates, I'm reminded of a lot of memories from the past. Back in my childhood, not many people had electricity products such as mobile phones or computers like now. I always ask my neighbors to play different games in front of my homes by using different types of papers. Games such as lying on the ground, blowing small pieces of paper that are full of advertisements, and paper occupies a very essential part of my childhood memories. Looking back, the language as well as the power of paper itself is really powerful.